Just go through it one more time. And I think we are totally good. There is Phil, Chip, Paul, John, and Miranda. Stunning.
Okay. Then I am sorry that I cannot attend. I hope it goes well.
Okay, I appreciate your dialing in.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay. It is now give or take 10 o'clock. Meeting's called to order. First order of business is to review the minutes from the last meeting. So commissioners, take a minute. If you've already read them, great. If you need some more time, no problem.
I actually didn't get them in the attachment of the email. Did I miss that? It was titled minutes, but I didn't see the minutes.
You know, I think, Chip, it's in the previous one that came from Phil, and then Victoria added some material.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Take a look. It did go out. I'm pretty sure I did review them.
Let me know.
Take your
Chip.
time.
I can resend too.
Chip, are you good, or do you want to resend?
I can, I'm looking for them.
Chip, this is Jeremy. I just resent it to you with just the attachment, just you alone. So it should come to the top
Thank
of your email.
I just
Thank
did
you.
the same thing.
Okay.
So you should have double.
Mhm.
Thank you, I have them.
Terrific. Thanks, Chip. Is everybody else good?
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
I am.
No, I realize it might have been confusing because I did send them first, and I think Victoria may have sent a follow-up.
I don't have any comment about the minutes.
Okay. If there are no comments or objections to the minutes as prepared by Rebecca, and thank you, Rebecca, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much, Paul. And the second was that you, Chip? Jeremy. I need to remove the dogs. Hold on one second.
I move to remove the dogs.
All in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Now the minutes are approved. I'm going to start, just take 30 seconds, quick dog removal. Dog removal is complete. We had two C of As approved, or pardon me, the city attorney prepared two C of As for one for 10 Rossman and one for 548, 550 Warren Street. Have you guys received that? Do you want me to review that at all?
I think they were pretty straightforward.
We're good.
You're all good? Excellent. Motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness as prepared by the city attorney for 10 Rossman.
So
So
moved.
moved.
I didn't catch that. Sounded like John and
Miranda.
Miranda.
terrific. Thank you very much. All in favor?
I,
Are there any opposed? None approved. Motion to approve the minutes for 548, 550 Warren Street as prepared by the city attorney. Motion.
So
I'll make that
moved.
motion.
Oh,
Paul, thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? None. Minutes are approved. Super. Thank you so much. So let's go through our schedule today. I had put City Hall ADA compliance upgrade on the entrance first up. They had filed early and on time. Who's here speaking for City Hall?
Hi, Phil. It's Peter Bujano, Commissioner of Public Works. Thanks for getting us on the agenda today. Just a little background on the project. We have the consultants, Lacey, Thayer, Riley, and Wilson on the phone. We have Steve Riley and Mark Thaler. As you may recall, some time back, we appeared before the HPC and discussed the preliminary idea about allowing ADA accessibility to City Hall. We initially had thought the front entrance, the main entrance, would be the logical way to approach the building. And I'll let Mark and Steve talk about that a little bit further in detail. We then concluded that there were more complications with that than using the side entrance, which is the DPW stairway up to DPW mayor's office, et cetera, and came up with a reconfigured plan, which Mark and Steve had forwarded to you for review, and we can review it further here. And so we are ready. LTRW was hired to provide biddable documents and manage the construction of the project. They've already gone through asbestos abatement, et cetera, and we are ready to put the project out to bid this month with your approval and common council's approval. And so that's what brings us here today. I'd like to turn it over to either Steve or Mark to continue the discussion.
Peter, thank you so much.
Mark, would you like to start?
Sure. So as Peter said, when we began to look a little deeper at the two options that were available in terms of entry, the center entrance provided a lot of difficulties on the inside of the building in terms of modifications that would need to be made within the clerk's area and disrupt some of that. And so we looked at the side entrance, and that actually was a better option to go with. We basically are removing the steps that are currently right there. The two marble cheek walls, will remain. And the door basically gets brought down to the sidewalk level, and then you'll enter into the building into a lower vestibule, and then we'll have a lift that can bring you up to the first floor, and then immediately adjacent to that, is a set of steps. So from the exterior, we will basically be lowering the doorway that is there, and reworking the marble on the sides of that.
Okay.
When you say reworking the marble on the sides, what does that entail?
So behind the steps that are currently there, when they are removed, the current marble work goes down to the first floor that is sort of immediately adjacent to the door, so that there is a little extra marble that will sort of patch in there. And other than that, it's from anybody that's just walking through to look at it, it will look as if the marble was always there, which for the most part it already is, obviously. There will also be out in the front a stanchion that somebody can have a paddle to open the door, because the door is sort of recessed back between those two marble bases. One a pier for the column and the other is just sort of at the end of the building. So to be able to get access to the door, we can't just wheel up to the side of the door. So we'll have a paddle out front that somebody can hit, and that'll just operate the door. So fairly minimal exterior modifications to City Hall.
Commissioners? I don't want to stop anybody from speaking, but if there are no further comments, I would ask for a motion to find the application complete.
I'm sorry, Phil, I do have a couple of questions, please.
Please go ahead, Chip. Sorry, I didn't
That's
mean.
not quite all right. So you're recycling the existing door and bringing it down to sidewalk level, essentially, much
Correct.
as had been proposed earlier.
Yes.
And then at the last presentation, we had some discussion about possibly recycling the stair treads, the marble stair treads that are currently outside of the door, down to be paving material between the two column plinths in that area. And that's not remarked upon here as far as what is the sidewalk material you're proposing here.
The sidewalk material, because it'll all be part of a heated sidewalk, there'll be snow melt in there. So the sidewalk concrete will actually go in between the two plinths, similar to the way that it is where there's not stairs currently. The stairs we looked at in terms of the viability for reusing them, and there's excuse me, there are some fairly major cracks in some of them that if we simply tried to relocate them, it would be problematic in terms of inside. What we are doing, we are providing marble treads on those interior stairs. And because that's basically a wood structure on the inside, they're, it's easier to address that than, trying to, support marble billets, that would also require quite a lot of rework in terms of cutting them down and so forth. So we do allow that as an option for the contractor if they want to reuse the same marble, but I think the likelihood is, they would probably just be new white marble treads that would be, and then the original marble would be turned over to the city.
In your lower left-hand drawing, on the lower left-hand corner of this drawing, that plan view, I just assume that it's a drafting irregularity, that the column on the right-hand side is not shown in that.
There actually is no column on the right-hand side.
It's actually a pilaster, yeah.
Yeah.
So if we go back to the photograph here, you'll see,
I see.
In pure elevation, they do actually look quite alike, but there's a pilaster behind the column on the left and a pilaster at the wall on the right. So the sections kind of cut a little bit.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
We'll say advantageously.
Yeah. Sorry, I was completely, I missed that you're working on the right-hand side of the building door, the right entrance, not the main entrance.
Correct.
So the main entrance stays as is.
Correct.
Okay, sorry, I missed that in your presentation. Huh, interesting.
Yeah, the purpose of doing it in this location is that it has much less disruption to occupied clerks' spaces inside if we keep it to the right rather than do it at the center.
Understood. Thank you for bringing up that existing condition photograph. That's helpful. Thank you. I don't really have any other comments.
Okay. Commissioners, if we're good, may I have a motion to find the application complete?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much, Paul. And a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Application is complete. And I guess I should have, well, keep on going. May I have a motion to request the city attorney to prepare a certificate of appropriateness?
I'll make that motion.
Jeremy, thank you. And Paul, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion's carried. You will have a certificate of appropriateness in 2 weeks with Craig Haig after the city attorney's prepared it. I sign it and stamp it. Peter and team, thank you so much. That was really an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you
And
very
Phil,
much.
and thank you to all the commissioners as well. Phil and yourself, thank you very much.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay. I had put this up a little early in the agenda because hopefully it's a pretty straight up proposal, which is a solar roof, I believe, at 323 Union Street. Who's speaking for 323 Union? Not so much. Craig, did I screw up somewhere? Or I had 323.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
You have
so-
the application.
No, I have everything from you. That's not what I mean. If we're straight up, we'll just move on. Maybe these folks
See
will
if I
come
can
back.
track them down for you.
We'll have them come back into the meeting. Next up, and I think this is number 6 Willard Place. Who's here for number 6 Willard Place?
Hi, everyone. Kim Wood here.
Hey, Kim.
Hi, good to see you all.
Good morning.
Good morning. So I'm here to present to the Historic Preservation Commission an application for 6 Willard Place. Hopefully I'm sharing my screen. It's located in the Willard Place Historic District, and I'm joined by Henry Stallings, the homeowner, who I believe wants to say hello and thanks, as well as convey his interest and appreciation in the home and its historical value. So Henry, if you just want to chime in here.
Yes, hi, good morning. How's it going? I'm here joined by my father. And you know, we're quite new to Hudson, but we were looking in the area in the Hudson Valley for quite a while and really fell in love with the neighborhood and the street and the historical part of the town, and really excited about restoring this property.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I love the legal lawyer resident history. I'm a lawyer myself, so it had a little resonance with me that you know, sort of a 19th century tradition being carried on, and another lawyer is going to be residing on the block. That doesn't scare anybody that a lawyer.
Perfect. Thank you both. Perfect. So as you can see on the slide, we're showing the home in question as well as the location in the Willard Place Historic District. Moving right along, we actually, oops, sorry, I jumped pages on you. We actually found some really cool information on the development of Willard Place. Just quickly, it was built and occupied in 1875 by Willard and Mary Peck. The name purely coincidence. The homes on the block shown, this is really cool. This is a 20th century postcard, and you can see how it emphasizes the porticos with some beautiful ornamental details on the stoops, which you'll also see carried through in our side porches. There's cresting, there's cornices. It has fantastic character. And as he was just saying, this street was surprisingly lined with a lot of lawyers that would often work on Warren Street. And so the location of it was a great convenience. Moving right along, we are going to show you some of the existing pictures. Again, this is where you really see that lovely stoop with the portico, some beautiful cornice work molding at the windows, really cool railings here. Moving right along, this is the side porch. I want you to remember this gorgeous portico railing post details. You can see this, which was clearly a later addition, a deck, as well as this piece that built out in the back. Keep on moving. I feel like it's going to go two at once on me. Okay, this is the other side. Again, just continuing the character around on all four sides of it. It's a 3-story with a basement. So of course, what we're asking for approval, we're really asking for things that can be divided into 2 lots. And the first, I would say, it's proposed exterior repair work. It's where we're looking to restore or replace or repair, I think I said, in kind of anything that's damaged or deteriorated. So that would include wood siding and trim. That would be your roof components, brick and masonry, and then more in detail, the entry steps, railings, landings, portico, any of that detailing at the front entrance and at the side porch. And I can go back to the existing pictures if that helps, but you can see that they have definitely degraded. What's really important, and the client has made this really clear to me, is that it's incredibly important to them to keep what is there, try to, bring that back to life. And it's not to replace anything, but rather to correct it and update it. What we are looking for that would be new, this would be the second, ask, I guess, would be looking at some new elements. So one of those is adding a twin double hung window. We are looking at changing the deck from what it is today, which is a little bit of a death trap, but doing a new one that would also give a nod to some of the decorative and ornamental details that you'll see in the existing building. And then also adding a back entry door. So I'm just going to flip on to the next page that I think better shows that. Just to show a little bit, oops, see, skipping pages on you. All right, so this is what you have today. This is the 3-story, this is the side porch, this is the front entry porch and the deck. We are proposing changing the shape of the deck. I think it's something simpler and cleaner, and also is a better continuation, which will express better in elevations. This is the approximate location of the new window, and then the new door, which will lead you onto the deck. So going to the next page. We've highlighted the new work here to try to make it as clear as possible. You can see that this new deck here, we really are taking a nod to this side porch, the wonderful decorative railings that we have here. And it carries around on all 3 sides. It's not that different in footprint from what was there today as far as square footage or for location on the property lot. We mentioned the twin windows. Here you can see what we're trying to do is match all of the existing details that exist today. We want it to appear as if it was always part of the facade and a continuation. Similarly with this door, what we are looking to do is actually take the details from the windows, not the other entry doors, just because of the size and scale of them. We thought it was more appropriate to look at the window molding, cornice, and trim details. And it kind of made the facade look very clean and like it could have always been there, which was our goal. And so you'll see we took a nod at the door that is on the existing side porch and looking to replicate that. We also are showing just a storm door that would be not too unsimilar from what's there, though I don't think that's historically relevant, but we wanted to show it. And then you can see here the side porch railings, posts, balustrades. Clearly it needs to be repaired. We're showing here how it's falling apart. And the intent would be, of course, repair that, and that's stripping the paint, if there's some repair, putty work, et cetera, and then putting, of course, a fresh coat, which is something that we are eager to do on the entire building. I can show you quickly the proposed elevations. I think this is kind of fun. I was doing this earlier, and I have the existing, and you can really see the existing deck, how I would argue that changing the deck to this would be a vast improvement on that deck that was there prior. I mean, I like doing this back and forth switch. But that is really the long and short of what we are proposing to do. And I think it's important, again, to underline the client's interest in, again, maintaining what is there and doing the proper updates to replace, repair, or restore in kind. And the new additions that they're looking to do, again, consistently are nodding to the existing architectural elements and ornamental elements, so that it will feel like it is, something that could have been there on day one. Henry, is there anything else you want to add to that breakdown of what we're asking for, or Father?
No, I think that's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd add, just to give you my little of my background, in addition to being a lawyer, and this will make me even more persona non grata. I've been an active real estate person in New York for some time. So, you know, I'm very accustomed to, obviously, we're going to be using local licensed contractors, but, you know, my business is, you know, building, renovating, whatever. So I'm very familiar with what goes into it. And so we're eager to hit the ground running with local contractors to do the work and the improvements.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Commissioners?
I have a question about the one-story addition. Just out of curiosity. Well, first of all, bravo, thank you very much. It looks like your objective here in restoring this building is just fantastic, and it's wonderful that you'll put the time and the effort into restoring this building. It is an amazing piece of work. I'm just curious about the one-story addition to the rear. Do you have a date of construction of that? Do you know when that was built?
I don't have that information. Craig, maybe I could get you to help look into more information on that. We certainly, it's obvious it's an addition, definitely when you look at the existing pictures of it, but I'm not sure, Chip, I'm sorry, I can't tell you
Yeah,
more.
no, that's quite all right. The reason I ask is that it almost looks like it is, since the roof line of the existing porch on the side extends around the back, I wonder if the original design was an L-shaped porch that wrapped around the back.
I bet
And
you're
that
right.
What we have here is an enclosure of that porch.
I bet you're right, because I did think it's funny in plan that they would have the side porch stick out the way that they do without having something to capture it here. So that makes a ton of sense that it was an L-shaped porch that was enclosed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
The side porch feels a little, you know, it looks great and it's a wonderful detail, but it does feel like it's a little bit of an orphan sometimes if you look at the
yeah,
function.
it is. It's odd that it's dead end. It would kind of make
Yeah,
sense if it was wrapped around.
Like, why did you do this? And that maybe answers it. So
Yeah, that's a great.
I really don't have any objection at all to the design. Certainly, extending the design of the handrail around to the back porch. The back porch is much better in a rectilinear form than it is in that semi-octagonal form. I would just say that if the proposed new storm door were to be a 4-panel wooden door that had lights in it, 4 lights in it, rather than the single light with, you know, your sort of basic Home Depot aluminum storm door, that would be a nice feature to make a more substantial storm door out of it. And the only other thing that I would offer, and this is not contingent upon anything, because I think what you've done is perfectly appropriate and can be approved, but if you wanted to extend and restore that image of the wraparound porch across the back and open that up with even more windows rather than the window punched in the wall as you have now, I mean, I think that we would probably look favorably on that. But again, I'm not saying that as a contingency for any approval or for you know, any other action. I'm just making a recommendation for you that would be an awfully nice feature as you're restoring the rest of the house.
yeah, we'll play with it, certainly.
Yeah, I think that's great to know that you're open to it. It's not something, you know, and I'll let you know, of course, I cautioned Henry, you know, that the amount of work we wanted to do, we wanted to be very thoughtful about it. So I didn't even have that on the table. I think the storm door, I would imagine we're open to that. And if anything, that sounds like a fantastic, easy thing that we could do to just elevate it a little bit more.
Yeah, you know,
Great.
Thank you. Congratulations. And it's really wonderful to see this building in good hands.
good. Thank you.
Appreciate that very
I
much.
just have one question. I agree with everything Chip said. It's really a major improvement and a very sensitive renovation. Just curious about the materials you intend to use underneath the deck, those screening materials. What will that be made of?
So right now, there is actually quite a bit of lattice.
Mhm.
Let me see, which I know is not necessarily the most exciting finish to use underneath it. It's not shown very well in this, but you can see that they infilled here, and there's some other locations that they infilled. That's what we were showing at this time. We would be open if there was a recommendation to discuss other options.
Could you
But-
go back one photograph, please?
Sure.
What year is the house again? Can you remind me? I apologize.
I think I said 1874.
Okay. I mean, much of the lattice wasn't this sort of diagonal lattice at the time, although there was that too. Was it? You know, we defer to Chip perhaps, but there is a lateral square, a horizontal square lattice that is often in use in these historic.
Yes.
That might be more appropriate.
Frequently, the lattice that we're seeing in this lower right-hand corner is clearly modern and, you know, typical of what is used today, but it's not uncommon for a house that has this kind of exuberant exterior woodwork that the lattice work would be equally detailed in terms of its complexity of its pattern and of using a variety of different board sizes in order to achieve a visual intensity of the lattice work. It's curious that, and the reason I ask you, thank you for taking us back to this photograph, is that there's a brick infill under that existing side porch that that may be even a later addition. I don't know whether, you know, that could have been a veneer placed over a more decorative, over a lattice work. I don't know if there are windows in the basement, for instance, underneath that porch that would support a different type of lattice work in that instead of brick. But
So there is a bulkhead here, which is, if you can see my cursor, approximately
I
here.
do.
So you're actually within the sub level in here. So this brick wall, I do think, was probably part of the original build out. But I do
Yeah.
follow your point of it would have made sense if it weren't for the fact that I'm familiar with the bulkhead
Right.
within this space.
And in this photograph in the lower left-hand corner, you can see one of the reasons, you can see the what looks like to be a plywood covering over that rear addition on the left-hand photograph.
Oh.
That, exactly, that area, which might speak against what I mentioned earlier about the addition being an enclosure of the porch. You know,
Oh, good point.
we would look to the foundation to maybe tell us the story of what the original construction was and if it was a wraparound porch, you know, or not.
That's a good point.
And the Sanborn maps that you had previously, some other exploration in the Sanborn maps might tell us about that addition. This map doesn't show the building on it, but there are earlier maps that might give a clue as to what that addition was. Not that it's necessarily germane to us right now, but it as a point of curiosity to understand the transformation of this building. And if it didn't have that addition, it's likely that the kitchen would have been in the basement. There would have been a service area in the basement. There might have been a service yard associated with that basement service area. That would also tell us a little story about the history of what life was like in this at this time. But
Definitely.
lots of good things to explore.
Yeah, I would be curious. So just to put a point to that, as far as the what we were showing as a lattice for us to receive a certificate of appropriateness, I think we would be open to any recommendation you have, and then of course have to consider what would make sense. But is the horizontal square lattice, would that be the request from the commission, or I just want to make sure I'm interpreting all this great information correctly? I
would suggest that you look at more of not a prefabricated lattice work, but really a field assembled lattice work that would be as exuberant and as visually interesting as the woodwork of the rest of the building. And I think also with a little examination of maybe some early photographs of this house, you might find some examples of what that lattice work looked like. And certainly this is of a period in which there are lots of published images of buildings of this period and that will illustrate a variety of lattice options.
Okay.
Well, so board members, are we looking at a condition here where you would be approving a C of A conditioned on them returning with more information on the lattice, or are you looking to hold this over for another meeting?
Victoria?
I don't,
Yes?
I want to hear from the applicant. My preference would be that that we open up the opportunity for the folk to come back with some variation on this. What I would love to have happen is that we can go ahead with an approval and contingency, or however we define it, that if there is a variation that the applicant wants to work with on the lattice, and there was a specific mention on the upgrading the excuse me, the storm door, that they would be, that we would permit them to come back with that when at the point in time when we vote on the C of A, if that makes sense. If that's too complicated, I get it, but I'd love to move these folks forward.
Applicant here, our interest is, obviously the lattice work isn't something that, needs to have the trigger pulled, immediately, nor the actual doors. But if we got, an approval and that those elements before they're finalized and completed, that we come back and resubmit specifics, but that we still have a go sign for getting the process started so that we can get to a point where we are introducing that door and we are introducing that lattice work, but so that it doesn't hold up the process of beginning to get the contractors lined up and trying to move forward. So if that's possible, we certainly, respect and have no issue with complying with the two elements you're raising, but we'd like to have the go on the balance of the work so we can get that, ugly terrace out of there and get ready to start building back something else, but leaving, an open issue as to how we complete the lattice and the door, if that's possible.
It's very possible. I accept your proposition. I think it's great. We are not approving or disapproving either the lattice or the storm door at this time. You'll come back with those, but excluding those two items, we are approving your proposal. That's my understanding of what you're suggesting.
That's exactly what I'm suggesting. Thank you.
I'm very comfortable with it.
Great, thank you.
Okay. If there are no further comments, then a motion to find the application complete, recognizing that there are two items where the applicant has agreed to come back, which is the lattice and the storm door. May I have that motion? Thanks, Miranda. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much, Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to waive a public hearing and request the city attorney to prepare a certificate of appropriateness for the entire application, excluding the lattice and the storm door?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much, Paul. And a second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Approved.
Thank you for your time.
Cool job, people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
It's for
guys.
your beauty.
Roll by and see the successful completion of what you just approved. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
house.
We should be, unless I got this wrong, are we at 9, Rossman?
Yes.
Okay. Who's speaking?
My name is Katie Flamia, and I am the architect. And today I have our clients, Orit and Yanif, with us. And I'm the architect from Spacesmith, and I'd just like to introduce them. And maybe they want to say a few words of introduction, and then I'll take you through the drawings.
Good morning, and thank you very much. Go ahead.
Good morning. Our camera doesn't seem to be on for some reason. I'm so sorry about that. I don't know what to do about it. It's nice to meet you all. We are relatively new in Hudson. We got here 2 years ago, just before the pandemic started, which is wonderful. We've lived here since then. In this beautiful house, in this beautiful location overseeing the river. This is a 125-year-old house. We are dealing with some personal accessibility issues that are emerging these days with my wife, Orit, who's sitting next to me, and I'll get the camera working at some point. I should know how to do this. I'm a tech guy. That's it.
Let me ask you a quick question. Are you on full screen? Do you see a little video icon in the lower left-hand corner?
It's just that for some reason, it's blacked out, and when I turn the video on, my camera doesn't go on, and my camera has just been on in another application.
I understand.
So maybe I should turn off FaceTime. I don't know what I'm doing wrong here. Maybe we should start it on another device. I'll get it working in a second.
No problem.
We're simply trying to make this habitable for us for the next, 25, 30 years. And this house needs to continue standing for another 125 years. It needs work. And Katie's helping us imagine what that would look like.
Great. Okay. With that, I will try to share the screen. Can everyone see the drawing?
Yes.
Or photograph. We'll start with the photograph. Okay, wonderful. So this project is to make updates and additions to 9 Rossman Avenue. And we are in the historic Rossman Historic District. The building is a 3-story Dutch colonial revival, and it was built in 1898. Let me go to the next slide. So this is what we're asking to do. I'll go through each of these briefly and then elaborate more when there's photographs illustrating them. First, we want to create a safe vertical accessibility to the home. And by that, we're asking to add an elevator and a stair and extend an existing staircase because they are not currently to code and are actually quite steep and rather dangerous. So that's our sort of primary ask because it's the largest visible part of the project. And so as our clients have said, there are accessibility issues and some of them are current and some of them are future potential things about, wanting to age in place in this beautiful house. So we also are asking to add a lower extension on the ground floor. And this would all happen within almost the existing footprint. There's a deck that extends now, and we would be extending these 2 rooms in the lower level to remain within that deck space. We also want to move the existing front door to the side, and I'll show you what we're proposing there. And that has a little bit to do, well, a lot to do with adding the elevator and sort of then creating an entry vestibule by having all the exterior entry doors go into one room. And also then we want to replace all the windows in the house need to be replaced for functional reasons, for energy efficiency, just general upgrades to that. And most of those, they're existing double hungs, and we would replace them with double hungs. And a few locations we're asking for casement windows. And then there are only 2 new windows that we're asking to put in the existing building, but this will all be clearer when we actually look at the building. So these are photographs of the house as it is now. This is what it looks like when you're coming up Rossman Avenue, walking or driving. And then these are the sides that you can see to the south. This is straight on from the neighbor's yard. This is more what you would see from the street, from the little parking area. And this is coming around toward the back. This is that porch that we were talking about. So our extension would stay within this footprint. And then we would rebuild the porch on top of that. And then as you come around the other side, we're not really proposing any work except replacing of the windows on this elevation. So this is just a general location plan so that you can see where in the street this property is. It's on the west side of the street and has spectacular views out the back. And this is the full site plan showing the entire property line. And then we blew this up a little bit so you could see a little easier. We have a setback that was obviously created after the building was built, because all of these houses are in alignment in their front. But so here we're showing where we would be proposing to put the stair elevator addition. We are trying to stay behind this line. And then this darkened area sort of represents the portion under the porch that we would be proposing. So let me go to the next one. So this is the view of the front elevation. Because we're replacing all the windows, I didn't note every single window. Instead, I'm putting a little star next to anything that's actually not part of the inclusive replacing all the windows note. So if we were to be able to move this door, and there's a better slide that explains what would happen, we want to put it in the side here. We would repeat this window in this location where the door is currently. And then this is the addition that this portion right here would be the elevator. And then this would be a small vestibule, and this is a view into the stair that goes behind. We have a perspective which will explain the volumes of this a little bit better, but we would be matching the siding, the shingles in everything that you're seeing here. We can go back to any of these slides when you want to in the question portion. So this is coming around the other side. You can see here the elevator is happening in this area, and it was quite an exercise, I will say, to first of all find an appropriate location that did not disrupt the flow of the interior of the house, as well as how do we break down a volume of a element, a passenger elevator which is essentially a tube with no windows in it. How do we break down that volume in such a way that it feels more in keeping with the existing house? So we did a series of stepping of this, which we'll show you in the 3D, will be a lot clearer. This is the vestibule, and these are all new windows here because it's obviously a new portion of the building. And then this is the one window that we're adding. There's a small powder room here, and it's a blank. Right now it's blank. So we were proposing adding a window here. This does not exist now. And this window does not exist. This one, however, does. So these are the two that we were asking to add into the existing portion of the building. And then in the back, the clients would like to add this extension. They would like to do it in a more contemporary but minimal style, and new railings and a new trellis, pergola above and also down below. As many of you probably know, this exposure of the sun on this side is intense. And so some mitigation of that is the intention of this portion. Let's go to the next one. And then this is the rear elevation, which is pretty, you can't really see this from too many places. I'll show you in the perspective what we're able to see from the street. We are proposing, though, on the back to continue the style of, as much as we can, copying the details. Above the windows have sort of a flat casing. This level, however, has a fairly ornate casing at the head casing. And so we would copy that on this level. And we would bring that around on all sides of this addition so that it keeps the integrity of that form. And this is a lower level door with just a little light in the top. And then the more contemporary part would really be this back section, just the part that is attached and under the porch above. So let's see. And then this final view really, oops, did I go the wrong direction? Yes. Here we go. On this side, we see the addition from the north side, keeping all of the windows that are here right now. These are replacing these fixed windows with the awning window. And then this is where you would see the door that we're proposing to put on the side entrance. And again, I think it'll be better explained in the perspective view. Yes, here. So when you're coming up, this is again sort of that first photograph that I showed you, view of what you would see as you approach the house from Rossman Avenue. And this is a photograph of the existing door the way it is right now. And our proposal is to take the door, the side lights, the head casing, and move it all to the side. We would use what we have right now and relocate it. And this, we're keeping the existing railing in the front. This was a little too hard for us to model, so we just want you to know that that's staying exactly the way it is. And I'll go around because we have some other images from this side. This is our proposed, this portion right here is where the elevator is. This is the vestibule into the elevator. And this is the extent, it's essentially the stair landings, because when you pull the stair to be the proper rise and run and a nice landing at the top, we thought if we pulled it all the way to the edge here, it would give a nice back to the vestibule and break down some of this bulk of what we were trying to do here. And then we're showing the type of fixtures and hardware and door windows that we're proposing to use here. And all the rest of this would remain the same, except that we are replacing in kind the windows that are there now. And then in the back, we are looking to do a little bit more of a contemporary addition below, more of a contemporary railing. But as I said, we will continue the nature of this addition all the way around. And then that's it. And if there's any slides that anyone wants to go back to or questions that you have, we're happy to try to answer them for you.
Could you go back to the photograph of the existing building?
Yes.
That page, please. So the existing windows are 1/1, or are they divided in some other way?
They are 1/1 currently. I think there's one or two that might maybe have, is there one up here maybe that is 2/1, but for the most part, they are.
It looks like on the photograph on the right-hand side, that in that dormer, there's a 2/1, maybe, or.
Yeah, I think that's right, that in these top three, but for the most part, the rest definitely on the first floor are all,
Can you zoom in on the middle top
yes.
photograph that you have there that shows that side?
Let's see here. This one?
Yes,
Yes.
this is the addition, the location of the new addition
Yes.
of the.
Sorry,
uh-huh.
I'm trying to get you closer.
Thank you. It looks like the attic window is also a divided light, but
Oops.
in that photograph, the second floor windows, let me bring that back. I wonder what
Sorry,
their
move to this.
situation is. Also, yeah,
And you want to go in close there.
if you can.
Yes, right there is what
Yeah.
you're talking about.
And
Yes.
then look at the second floor windows there also on that image. You could go in a little more.
These, I think, are 1/1.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. This
Okay.
is divided, and the front three, I think, are divided.
There are little divided light windows in the octagonal sides of the door, semi-octagonal sides of the dormers, right? In the front?
Oh, here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Is that a window?
it is a window.
Okay. And what type of window is that? Is that?
I think it's just a fixed window. It
Okay.
doesn't, it's not operable.
Huh, curious. Okay,
So are there, is
I'd
there?
like,
anything
I
else?
want to, could we look at the rear addition and could we look at the existing, you have a photo of the existing condition?
Yes. Get out of this. There we go. Which,
The deck up back?
okay, yeah. Sorry. Here.
Yeah, in the lower right-hand corner. So is this porch, is it, I mean, the railing is appears to be identical to the one in the front. Is this porch original?
I don't believe so. Also because of the way these are created, and I believe when we talked with Craig, there were a couple of building permits that were from, I think, the 80s. But I couldn't be certain about when this.
I mean, I would hazard to guess that it's not, right?
Well, the way this part is constructed, it doesn't, it's very much a deck and not a porch, if that.
Right. All right. I mean, my only comment on that would be, it seems a shame, for lack of a better word, to alter this facade even further. Like those rear windows are lovely, and this is just one man's opinion, right? But I would listen to the rest of the commission on that. The side addition seems so practical as to be, and artfully done as to be easily approved as appropriate. But the rear addition to me is slightly different.
I would agree with that.
Do any other commissioners have an opinion?
Can you show the proposed rear elevation by contrast?
Yes. Let
Take a
me
look.
try
That'd
to-
be great.
Takes a little minute to.
You wanted to mention something? We got
Yeah,
a
while
camera
we,
looking
yes,
at you.
while you're getting ready, the railings in the porch are very low and dangerous. So while it's very pretty and fits the front porch, the deck ones seem to be very dangerous as they are. They are below, and I'm not a very tall woman, and they get into below my hip.
I
We
understand.
want to do something, so we want to do something that will be safer. And I understand why they did it, because when you sit, this is the right height to have the right view of the wonderful sunsets. But it's just extremely dangerous. And we definitely do not allow kids to get close to it. And we have kids coming to visit us, and I don't go next to it because it's dangerous.
But if you want to do something that had less contrast, you could replicate those as those were replicated from the front. You could replicate
Yes.
those same at a higher height. I mean, that's.
But then it's going to block the view. That's the thing. It's exactly the right height that if you sit there, it doesn't block the view. So I understand why they did it. But if you put it higher, then the view of the river and the sunsets is going to be a little bit blocked. You cannot sit outside and watch the view. You have to stand up. So that was from my view, that was the logic behind why they did it that way. But we have to kind of make a choice. Either we cannot use the view, which is one of the most amazing things of the house, or not use the porch in the way that we should. So that these were the considerations that we had, and that's why we chose something that is empty most of the thing. Next door, a few houses up, they did it with glass. I personally do not like the idea of glass. I wanted to make it something that will be less in contrast to the way the house is than what they did. To kind of balance these two things. So I hope you understand the reasoning.
I think what we're doing here is, speaking of the house down the road, I'm not exactly sure the number. You probably have seen it rather recently.
Yeah, we saw it, or
Yes.
some of us saw it.
And what we're asking to do is much simpler and much quieter, I think, than what's happening there. Again, it's in sort of the current footprint of what's there, and pretty much not very, very little of this is the contemporary part that we want to put on the back is visible from Rossman Avenue. It's really, as you come around, you have to fully come around the back to see this portion. So we were hoping to be able to put a little bit more of a contemporary style of detail in the back here, but very simple.
It's not really visible from the alley in the back either.
I think that looking at this elevation and the previous photograph that we were looking at the rear, one of the things that we had in the rear is the appearance of a two-story porch. the columns that are round, I think, on the upper level transition to a square post, a square column below. I think that's what the photographs show. What this addition of the lower level architecturally, it becomes a horizontal composition rather than that vertical composition. So that the windows are long and narrow, they're grouped together in a horizontal way. And I think that, first of all, I think you very skillfully handled the requirement of the elevator and the stairs and the windows. I think that addition on the side is very successful and quite good. It's broken down in its mass and it has variety, and it's certainly clearly subservient to the original building. It's quite good. I also, by the way, don't have any objection to moving the front door. Typically, one that's kind of a red flag for preservation, that you take an element like that and move it. But the interior floor plan of the colonial revival building of this period was frequently not symmetrical and not axial. And so having that informality of the door not immediately addressing the street and straight to the street, I think it is appropriate to make that modification. But I think the least successful part of this application is the proposed addition in the rear. And what you describe as a more contemporary attitude just falls short of what the original building, of the elegance of the original building. So I appreciate that it's not terribly visible from a public way, and I appreciate the fact that certainly the handrail needs to be modified in order to make it code safe. I am perfectly acceptable to make some modification to it. The question is, what is the replacement and how appropriate is that? And just one other thing, I think that the windows should not be clad. I think they should be wood. I think they should be painted. And I think that where we have a multi-pane composition, such as the 2/1, if that is original to this building, which I'm kind of guessing that it is, that should be something reflected in the proposed window replacements for the building.
Could I see the front? Oh, well, if you guys want to remain on here, that's fine. But we at some point go and look at the front door change again.
Oh, the front door change, or the perspective, or this view?
Change the before and after, perhaps.
Okay, so this is before, this is how it looks now.
Uh-huh.
And then the way we want to do it, I think, is best shown here. So the door would be here, and then this window, and that would look like this window.
I mean, we gave the neighbor a very difficult time about a much less significant change. If those of you who were here will remember, I would be fine with the back porch. I was kind of asking because, you know, I wanted to see if those railings were original. I agree that they're very unlikely to be, but this to me is a much more significant change. And just because it could have been made like that, Chip, I'm going to disagree. Just because it could have been made like that doesn't mean that we should remake it like that.
Yeah, your comment is, John, is perfectly valid about the front door. I don't debate that for a second.
I find the change. So with the using the neighbor as precedent, and they did something. Katie, you're right. They did something much more drastic in the back than what you're proposing, right? And intentionally entirely different in scope and style, right? But we really focused on maintaining the integrity of the front. And in order to give them in order to allow them to have the back. So my sort of, if I were to make the decision on my own, I would ask you kindly to leave the front door as it is and maintain as much of the original facade as possible. But then if that is the formulation that you seek in the back, including those railings, I don't think that it matters that much. So
So if we would choose, we care a great deal about the construction in the back, and the door in the front moving to the side is a nicety and not important in the grand plans.
I'm one voice. I'm not all the voices, and I think everyone, it's, at least Chip and I have spoken, that the elevator seems, you know, sensible and appropriate for what it is.
Yeah, I just to add my vote to it, I would prefer if the door didn't move. I agree with John that maintaining the front facade is desirable. I am not troubled by the rear elevation because I don't think it's really visible from the street or even from the alley. And I think that the existing structure in the back looks as if it's been assembled kind of piecemeal over time. Anyway, to me, this is, though it's contemporary, it's more consistent as a design. I do agree, however, with Chip that if we have it would be better if we didn't have aluminum clad windows, that we really like to try to keep wooden windows. And also if there are 2/1s in some places, particularly on the front facade of the building, it would be desirable to keep as much as possible the integrity of the street facing facade at least.
I would just ditto everything Miranda and John said. I would prefer to see the facade remain as intact as possible.
Yeah, this is Jeremy. I don't have any dissenting view to anything that's already been communicated. I think what I love so much about this house are the simple volumes and geometries that comprise it. And so whatever we can do to maintain those, I think is key. I think sometimes the back feels there's a lot going on, but that's my personal opinion and not necessarily something that should impact the outcome here.
Can I just ask a question about the condition of the windows throughout the house? Do we think those are they the original windows that go back to 1890? Is it the wavy glass? Can you tell us about that?
They don't seem to be the original. Well, they're very different ones in different rooms. So it's not like there is a general thing I can say about all the windows in the house. Just as some of them are 2/1, some of them are 1/1, 1/1, even in the same room. So it's not that there is anything consistent. What I can say consistently is that they're not very good insulators.
Well, the majority of them don't shut.
Don't shut completely.
There are new ones in the kitchen in the back and in the bedroom in the back that do, but everything else doesn't really shut. And they are very drafty, even with storm windows. They must be replaced. And we'd like them to be uniform, and we'd like them to be in the right style. So.
Yeah, it seems like different people
Board
did
members?
different windows.
I'm sorry, I was just going to interject and ask if these changes were substantial enough to request a public hearing.
Who would answer that among you?
I didn't hear it.
Are the
Chip, you're on-
changes?
Chip, you're on mute. Chip, you're speaking and you're on mute. Oh,
I
sorry,
want
Phil.
to, can I just say something? You know, the back is visible, right? I have to say that I keep thinking that the back is not visible, but it is. And no one wants to hear this, but are we substituting our judgment for the cities, right? Like the city has an opinion in our shared views, right? Whether they're urban or otherwise. So maybe this is just like, maybe we should do a public hearing and see if anybody else cares deeply. Maybe this alteration rises to the level that we need the public's input. Just something to propose.
Was there a public hearing on the neighbor?
I'm sure there was.
Yes,
I'm sure there was. It was a very big deal. That's what prompted me to think of it.
Yeah.
This is a much, much smaller change.
So there's a proposal out there to have a public hearing?
I think at the public hearing, we should consider like the views of the rear from, where can you see this house from in the rear? So maybe that's.
I'm
something-
sorry, I didn't realize I was mute. Let me go back to the sort of the bid and ask on where we were a couple minutes ago. I understand the public hearing thing. We do that from time to time. It is unusual that they're particularly informative in it, but there's always that possibility. On the discussion so far, where would you be, for example? Well, I understand where I think you would be on the front door. That didn't seem to be an obstacle. You'd be comfortable leaving that in its where it is. If that was the ask. And two, where would you be on wood windows rather than clad, which is pretty consistent with what the commission has asked for from other folks over some period of time.
Some, well, about the windows, some of the windows are already metal windows.
Yeah,
For
no,
example,
yeah.
yes.
There are four modern metal windows that were put in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
The kitchen windows and two of the three windows on the upstairs in the back are new. Metal. And that's our preference, simply because of probably cost and insulation.
I understand. So your thought it is in two parts. One, it's consistent with what's there.
Some of what's there.
Some of what's there is already modern and high quality and good.
And well,
So, no matter what you do, there would be some mix. Even if you went with wood on the windows that you're replacing, there'd still, I believe, be a mix of metal and wood. Is that correct?
yes.
I understand. The door, I understood not to be an issue. Yes.
Moving of the door, is that?
Or not moving the door, for example, as some of the commissioners requested.
Could I just ask about the door? Is it a sort of an architectural? I guess what I'm trying to get at is we weren't required to show plans, but I think to explain this door swings incorrectly, it should swing in.
Yeah.
Basically, the current house is sort of a center entry with the stair to the left. And you can see that in this plan. And we've pretty much destroyed the functional use of this library. And when we go upstairs, in order to get this elevator in, we have pretty much reduced the functionality of this bedroom too. So part of the request was if we were able to actually, because we're in a certain way recentering this house because of this addition, the relationship, which is fairly traditional of a stair and an entryway together as one, this creates this room as being this, in the way, like historically functioning. From a functional point of view, on the inside, it actually is an improvement, and I think more, in a way, more traditional setup. Because as you can see, this room now becomes sort of passage through here. And then this would allow this room to have more integrity. But anyway, that was just, it was a question I guess I was trying to get at was, is it just a matter of keeping the way something looks, the way it looks right now?
I think yes. I mean, I'm going to answer that in a word. Yes.
Okay.
Right. The house has integrity in and of itself, and it's great. But we also recognize that people need to make changes. They need to add elevators, and people need to live in these homes too. But if there's a question before us as to whether change something that we know was there was there 130 years ago, my recommendation is don't change it. And I'm sorry, that sounds a little harsh. It's not what I mean, but it's just if there's no compelling reason to change it, then don't. especially in a house that's this beautiful and appropriate for, and it's, you know, beautiful and worth preserving.
Well, I guess my argument to that was that with the addition of the elevator, the way to create an elegant entry hall, moving this door to the left would do that. This is now a beautiful bay window with a bench in it, entry hall, as opposed to just a walk-through space that is very hard to use. So,
But I think this is a slightly philosophical conversation, but what belongs, you know, what are we here for? This is the Historic Preservation Commission for the City of Hudson. What belongs to Hudson? It's our collective view of the streetscape and the houses. You own, the interior is not our purview. Y'all own the interior, but we collectively enjoy the exteriors. So if you're going to change the exterior, it affects the public. I mean, maybe that if you want to change the exterior, then this for me is even a more compelling case to bring in a public hearing, which we've done for lesser additions than these.
John, I think that as Chip pointed out in his initial observation on moving the door, is that it was not atypical to have some different symmetry, or what he called informality, with the positioning of the door. I think the impact on the public with that symmetry or informality or asymmetry is pretty much de minimis. The impact on the owner in terms of usability of the interior space may be more than de minimis. It impacts on their use of the space. And what we're here for is exactly what you said, but basically the determination is about appropriateness. If I understood the conversation, Chip had said that the repositioning of the door was in fact appropriate. Maybe there's justification for leaving things alone. I don't think that's always the case. So I minorly disagree. There's no disagreement on the philosophy of what we're here for. But we are empowered to opine on this in terms of appropriateness or inappropriateness. I believe that move of the door is appropriate, and I don't think the public value is particularly underserved by that. On the back, the applicant has said, and there was general agreement that there's stuff that they need to do from a safety point of view. And other points of view. The visibility is de minimis. The public has a minor, if any, interest in the back. So I'm not understanding what the public is being. We're going to bring the public in to opine on the back of a building that in all likelihood they will never see. I'm not sure that their interest overweighs the interest of the owners. Just talking.
I would say that we should put this to a public hearing, given the scope of changes to the building and how well preserved the building is. But that's just one vote.
I would also, excuse me, I would also consider having a public hearing for this. I think it's important. And I think in this view of this sketch, if you would be kind enough to go back to the exterior view of the front, just talking about the front door again. There is a very strong center axis. I think there's do you have another front view?
this is the only other one that's
Okay,
behind here.
then if you could zoom in on that left, there you go, that's it. One of the features of this center axis is that the three dormers that are on the second floor are symmetrically arranged in a composition that has a central axis for the composition of the building. And I think that the first floor helps to anchor that. The front door helps to anchor that cemetery. So I respect the comments that have been made by the other commissioners regarding the importance of the front door. And I'm also inclined to do a public, I think a public hearing is appropriate here. It's a significant change. I do take a little bit of exception with Phil's comments about the view from the rear not being necessarily visible. I think there are times when that case can be made. I don't know that it's been made here yet. So
I think I would like to get clarification. I'm sure Yannick and Ori would also, if they were to not move the door, would this need to go before a public hearing?
I would still say we should bring it to the public hearing and using the precedent of the previous. And just a scope of change to the building, but I think we should just put that to a vote.
Yeah, I think it's important to remind ourselves that the default is to have a public hearing. Our vote is to waive the public hearing. So it seems, I'm sure the homeowners feel like they're being put in an exceptional position where actually the regulation is we have a public hearing unless we waive it. So what we're talking about doing is not waiving it in this instance.
That's correct. You can only waive a public hearing if the proposed changes are, very minor, like replacement, not in kind, but small changes to windows, doors, etc.
thank you, Miranda, for that observation. It's very good.
So I think what we're saying is that we will not waive the public hearing in this case. And we'll consider the application again in the context of the public hearing.
Are there changes that you would want us to make? Like, for example, do you want to see 2/1 on the top floor here? Did you have other
For me
issues?
personally, the 2/1 on the front of the house is quite important because it makes it clear that it's an 1890s building as opposed to a 1930s building, which it could be. I do think that that's actually an important architectural element. My personal opinion, as I said before, is I'm not really troubled by the rear of the building. I actually think in some ways it makes it more consistent. But in the front of the building, the things that are, to me, very outstanding about this design are the symmetry with the two dormers and the center dormer being different, and the 2/1 windows, which make it 19th century as opposed to 20th century. And I don't feel as strongly as some others about moving the door. I could live with moving the door, but it is a very big change and it does affect the symmetry of the ground floor. So I think that's why we're thinking we should have a public hearing. That's my personal opinion.
And before we make any votes or decisions, I still want to revisit the windows. It's unclear to me. I know there have been some metal fabricated replacement windows, but are the majority of the windows still the wood windows?
4 of them are modern ones, and the kitchen and the bedroom on the top. So in the back of the building, all of the modern ones are in the back of the building.
Okay.
There is one old one in the back of the building. So I guess there's one old one on the top floor where we are, and there is 2 old ones on the exit from the main floor into the porch. Yeah.
So some are and some aren't. Some are and some aren't.
It looks like a very random selection of things that were done.
But
So,
most of the
but again, I
windows
just,
on the front.
is it most, so it's only 4 metal windows and the rest are wood?
I'm
No.
trying to count now. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I just
I
don't
think that
remember.
most of them are, I think that if we count, probably most of them are wood.
Yeah.
Some of them are 2/1, some of them are 1/1.
Yeah.
And there are some who are that are metal.
I mean, guys, don't we usually do like for like?
We can do.
I think
I mean,
the
do we want
rule,
to see metal windows throughout the entire house?
Like for like is not really a useful tool for restoration. It is really meant for repair.
right.
So it changes the playing field a bit. If it was a matter simply of repairing some broken stuff, then like for like would be in place.
Mhm.
And as Craig said many times, like for like means like for like. It's intended that you're replacing something pretty much exactly. This is a restoration. And it's a bit of a different playing field. We at this point, we have to talk about what's appropriate.
Is there any concern that what's proposed is not appropriate? Chip, Paul, anyone?
Again, it's unclear to me. Are they all going to be metal fabricated windows 1/1 or 2/1? Well, I'm not sure what we're.
Well, my originally we went in thinking we would replace them all with metal clad, wood on the inside, metal clad on the outside, with just 1/1, because the majority of things was 1/1.
Mhm.
But I think, I'm speaking for my clients right now, but I think if we were to put at least on the front 3, 2/1, maybe on the whole, on the 3 sides that face the front. I think we're open to think about like a
Yeah.
2/1.
Yes,
Of
yes.
course,
Yeah.
of course,
Yes.
of course. We want to
If-
do the right thing.
Yeah, if this
absolutely.
is something that we were not aware of as an important element of the design,
Right.
because the way we bought the house, it seemed very random. And now we're learning something,
Okay.
that this
Katie,
is
I
something
think
that
what you
we-
just recommended would be very satisfactory.
Which I offered so many.
Doing the 2/, as you said, the facades that we would see, the sides that we would see, to at least do the 2/1, I think that would be fine.
Okay, on both levels? Because what's interesting about this house, I don't know which one shows it the best, is they treat the top very differently from the bottom. And if you see, I'm so bad at this, there's quite a beautiful detail on this first floor. And then as you get to the second floor, that's gone.
Mhm.
You
Oh,
know,
now I
so-
see. That's
so
another
both-
metal. That's another metal window. The one that you've got your cursor
this
on.
one, yeah,
There's a
that's-
third metal window in the kitchen, a new one. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right above it, where the air conditioner is, in that one, is a 1/1. But right next to it, we're in that room right now. Right next to it, there is a 2/1 facing the back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that-
And so it's
The dormers appear to be, the dormers that are in the Dutch roof, gambrel roof, appear to have 2/1.
yes. On the front,
On
yes.
both the front and the back. And I think the point that Miranda made about the dating of this house is super important. You would see a mix of windows in an 1890s colonial revival or Dutch revival. You wouldn't see a mix of windows necessarily in the 1930s Dutch revival.
Oh, that's
or
understood.
colonial revival.
It was just a renovation. Now I know what a dormer is. So the same thing exists on the back, and 2 of them are modern windows, and the third one, the room that we're in, is the 2/1.
Yeah.
On the back. So it's just
It sounds as if the windows were just replaced occasionally as time
Mhm.
went by.
Yeah.
Right.
People do. And here you have an opportunity to make it consistent and make it really stand for the period in which it was constructed.
I think that now
What
that
we
you
were
mention it,
before.
it's worthwhile if we do this in the front 2/1 to maintain that historic view, to do the same thing in the back,
Yes.
Yeah, to do it in all the windows.
because that top floor is the only thing that you see from the street downstairs. When you're down in the alley, it's very diagonal. When you're in the alley, all you see is the top.
Yeah.
So we could make it look exactly like the front.
Right, and we can do the 2/1 on the second floor.
Yeah.
And are we looking now at doing wood window rather than a clad window?
We don't know.
We're looking for energy efficiency.
Right.
And honestly, there is also a mechanical issue.
Well,
we're having an issue with our hands.
Yeah, I have issues with doing things
Sure.
with my hands, so I need to have something that I can
We're just looking
relatively
for-
easy move up and down.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you're replacing these windows with new Marvin windows, it's the wood window that's factory painted by Marvin has a very respectable maintenance life. And it is wood on the outside. It's not aluminum. I actually think that the long-term life of the window is better as a wood window rather than as a clad window.
That's interesting.
But in terms of operation, they would be exactly the same. I don't think of a modern wood window is as easy to operate as a modern clad window.
Is it much more costly to do that? The wooden one, I have no idea. Never thought about.
I think I don't think it's a significant difference. It might even be a little less expensive to do a wood window rather than an aluminum clad window.
We're completely open to those kind of
Yeah.
those kind of
Solution.
improvements and
Yeah.
those kind of solutions to the preservation. Absolutely.
Marvin makes some really excellent historic reproduction windows that are double pane and energy efficient and everything that you want. I
And-
recommend that you just look into it, and I don't know exactly what the cost difference is,
Oh.
but I know that Marvin does make them.
We do know that we want all the windows to be the same on every floor. We want the same look.
Okay.
We want that improvement. We want to be.
Of course, and it's good for the building and it's good for energy and it's good for you. So I
Right.
don't think for a second we are, I think it's appropriate to change, to put in an insulated glass window here. I know that Paul was speaking previously about the importance of maintaining the integrity of these windows as original. I'm sorry, I stepped away. I don't know what the final result of that was, but you know, I think that a replacement of an energy efficient double hung window here with a wood interior and wood exterior is appropriate.
Yeah,
If we-
as Chip mentioned, you can get them factory painted, and the maintenance of the paint is just as good, really, as the aluminum.
Oh, Katie will guide us through this.
Yes, we will look into that. So as for next steps, I think what we can do is change our presentation to include in our elevations, the new 2/1 window going throughout. And then I guess, is that the only thing we would have to do for
Just,
this
excuse
hearing?
me, just as a clarification, I don't know that the first floor windows were 2/1. It's possible that they were 1/1, and that the only place that the 2/1 windows occurred were in the dormers. We don't see evidence of it in the side windows of the second floor. And unless you have found evidence of them on the first floor, it's distinctly possible that the original configuration of the first floor windows are 1/1.
That's quite possible. I don't think that these old windows are all the same vintage.
Well, you know, again, a historical photograph, any physical evidence on site that would determine that would be useful. But
All
So
right,
where
so,
are we on the public hearing question? We veered off of that.
What is still on the table as stuff that we can't resolve, and if we can resolve the window discussion going forward, and it appears we can, maybe there's some more data required. What's unresolved about the back of the house that is triggering a public hearing? I'm just asking. I mean, I'll do what you.
I just think it's the scope of the change to a house of this, you know, the house of this condition from its period.
Do you think
I
we
think
should
that's a
vote on
perfectly
whether we think there
persuasive
should be a public hearing?
argument. I think it's appropriate to have a public hearing for this.
Okay.
The bigger change, then it's an addition to it's two additions to a pretty immaculately preserved 19th century home.
Okay. I just want to say to the applicant and so on, I did challenge that. Some of that is pure truth. Some of it is laziness on my part because it's a fair amount of extra work. I'm still recovering from having had a lovely vacation for a week and not totally ready to pick up the mantle of work, but it's not that big a deal.
Okay.
It's easy to set up. People are not mean-spirited. They are curious. They come in and there are in fact useful comments and insights. And last but not least, when there are significant changes, it's actually our obligation as a commission to make the public hearing available. So please don't misinterpret my pushing back a bit. We'll be there. We'll guide you through it. We do not have to be obedient. The fact that Tom, Fred, or Bob says something, it's not a colloquy. We don't debate. We listen. And it still comes back to the commission making its own decision in conjunction with the architect, designer, and homeowners. So all the changes in the process is that it adds a couple weeks. And other than that, the process is the process. This is about you, the applicant, and us, the commission, making these decisions together. The only difference is that we get opinions and thoughts from more folks. So not a bad thing. And forgive me for objecting if that scared you or made you feel uncomfortable. We do it all the time, and it's not so bad. Probably just my laziness. Commissioners, if you all are agreed, then as a next step, then I recommend we give the applicants time to think on some of the suggestions we've made. It's their call to incorporate or not incorporate going forward. Ours is to vote. So we've given them a lot to think about. And if I may have a motion, we could go forward with a public hearing in 2 weeks. Is I generally recognizing what folks want? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, apologies to the applicant. I think I frightened you.
No apologies needed. Thank you so much for all of this time and attention. It's very interesting. You know, this is an old house and you're experts and we're learning.
Okay, all right, no, that's very generous. Motion to set up a public hearing in 2 weeks? Anyone?
Paul?
I make the motion, yeah.
I'll second it. This is Jeremy.
Second, Jeremy, in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Done. So we're back again in 2 weeks. Please think about the discussion today. you have a right to change or not change based on what we've said today. And if you need to get in touch with one or another of us, if you have further questions, either through Craig or directly, you can get in touch with me over the next 2 weeks and we'll figure out what we're doing.
Okay. And can you just for all of our sake, the client and me, the way this will go is exactly the way it went today, where we present ourselves, we present what we're trying to do, and then we hear from the public. And then what happens? Then you vote.
We go,
right then
we
and there,
go,
or-
no, we go exactly into deliberation again. The
Okay.
commission then will have heard from the public. Think of it as just another day. And we, the commission, deliberate on the application as you present that day, 2 weeks from now, and on the usefulness or unusefulness of anything the public might have said. But to be clear, we are not bound by public opinion. We listen to public opinion.
But you'll debate it on the spot. It's not.
We will debate it
Okay,
in the meeting, just like today.
okay. Great. Well,
Okay.
I very much appreciate, we all very much appreciate all your comments and your time and your helping us get what we need to make it appropriate. So thank you.
We will work with you. This will get done.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Next, we have Depot District. And is Walter on board?
Hello, this is Dan Kent here from Galvin Foundation. Walter is going to be listening in. He can't fully participate today. If there are any technical questions, I'm going to be recording them, and he'll kind of chime in as he can, but he's somewhat limited today.
Okay.
So I'll do my best to fill in.
No problem, Dan. First of all, thank you. I got maybe a little confused. I think other folks did too, because there are we've received some different applications on different stuff. I need to take about a 5-minute break. John, if you could share, and Dan, if you could tee up what this is. What is the Depot District? What are you trying to accomplish? And we'll go from there and just walk through it together. So thanks very much, Dan. I'm just going
Thank you, Phil.
I'm
Gladly
pausing
so.
out and John will chair.
Great. So as an introduction, we have submitted an application for our new construction project at 75 North 7th Street, north of the corner of State and 7th. And this is a mixed use project creating 95 units of mixed income housing, as well as ground floor commercial space. Part of the reason why we are here is that while the site is not located within the locally designated Hudson Historic District, one of the 3 lots that are a part of this site is located within the Federal Register National Historic District, the Hudson Historic District. So as a result, this project is subject to the requirement to obtain a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic Preservation Commission. That property, the southernmost house located at 65-67 North 7th Street, we submitted to the New York State Historic Preservation Office our plans. There is a requirement with the State Historic Preservation Office, if you are proposing to demo a property that's listed in a historic district, that you must submit an alternatives analysis, which essentially is created by a third party. In this case, it was the Hudson Valley Cultural Resource Consultants, and they evaluate whether or not it is feasible to achieve the goals of the project without having to demo the house. We submitted that alternatives analysis to SHPO. They accepted our findings, and they also reviewed our plans for both the building at 75 North 7th and another proposed building across the street. And they determined that our proposed design reduces the impact on the adjacent historic district. So I've included that alternatives analysis as well as the determination from SHPO within the packet. So we're presenting information on both buildings just so that you can see how they relate. We have a proposed structure at 708 State Street, right across from 75 North 7th. That is not located in any historic district, but we think it's important as you're looking at what we're proposing for 75 North 7th that you see how it relates to what we've proposed across the street. I will say our designs for 75 North 7th, we tried really hard, and our architect Walter tried to ensure that the scale and the character of the building are consistent with the general architectural designs that are found within Hudson. So the materials we're presenting, we wanted to demonstrate not just our design, but also how it relates to some buildings in the surrounding neighborhood. So that's a kind of overview. Does anyone have any questions about that before Phil returns? Okay, should I just jump in, share my screen, and give you a sense of the images? Okay, I see nodding heads, so let me share my screen here. Does everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Oh, so here is a current photo of the site. The left side of the page is 75 North 7th. So that is the property we're seeking a certificate of appropriateness for. The right side is 708 State. If you were to look even further to the right than what's shown on the page, you would see the historic Upper Hudson Depot building, which we are in the process of finishing restoring now. So there's the current photo, and here is what we've proposed. Now to give you a closer look at 75 North 7th, here is the design that Walter came up with. Part of the idea here was to break up the massing by having some different materials at different parts of the building. Here is a sense of some of the potential material types, different colors of thin brick, metal roof, some stone products on the first floor around the commercial space. Now here is an elevation that shows how the two buildings relate to each other. This is from the south elevation looking up North 7th from Warren Street. You see 75 North 7th on the left, 708 State on the right. Now here is a neighborhood cross section which demonstrates the scale and the massing of the building compared to other properties that I'm sure all of you are familiar with. This one all the way to the left-hand side is the Hudson Community Theater building. The building, this is the current garage that is just south of the site. This one in the middle is the county probation office, just around the corner on State Street. Then you have 75 North 7th, and then finally the Pocketbook Factory. So you see, even though this is a 5-story building, the height of it is actually almost the same as the Pocketbook Factory and the county building around the corner. So that's from the western, looking west. looking north, you can get a sense of the same effect. And we've also included 708 State here all the way to the far right, showing not just how it relates to 75 North 7th, but also how it relates to the historic depot building. Now, so those are the images we have today. We're very much interested in getting your input on how we can make sure that this project truly reflects the character of the Hudson Historic District. You'll also find in the application the negative declaration that the planning board issue as part of their secret review process. That provides a lot of detail on some of the questions they asked and environmental impacts that they evaluated. You'll also see the alternatives analysis that we submitted to SHPO and the SHPO letter indicating their findings after reviewing that analysis. So I won't go through those line by line here. I think at that maybe I'll, does anyone want to see any other images again, or should I stop sharing and open this for some discussion and questions?
I think it would be helpful to go back to the elevation of the buildings that we're discussing right now.
Sure thing. So here is the building we are seeking a certificate of appropriateness for.
Is there a rendering or anything that shows the building as a model within its surrounds? Like, I think it's great that you showed it, for example, next to the depot. But is there anything that shows it with its immediate surroundings, perhaps either in 3D or from above?
I do not have a rendering that shows it's next to the neighboring structures.
I'm going to see if I can dig one out while you talk, Dan.
Oh, thank you, Walter.
Yeah, can you go back up just one to the previous image that we just saw for a moment?
This one?
Yeah.
Sure.
And say again, how many apartments are located in this building?
75. And there are 4 ground floor commercial spaces, all of which are approximately 1,000 square feet.
Hey, Dan, this is Craig.
Not Craig.
If the commission don't mind, for clarity purposes, the building that you're destroying, or demolition, I should say, can you go back to that page?
Oh, do you want to see? I can bring up an image of that building. Would that be helpful?
Yep.
Sure. It's this one here.
Okay, so just for clarity purposes, the project is 75 North 7, but that building is actually, I believe, 65.
Yes, so the correct address, we're calling it 75 North 7th. It's really 65 to 75 North 7th, as it includes 65, 67 North 7th, which is the property that is in the historic district, 69, 73 North 7th, which is not in the historic district, and then 75 North 7th, which is also not in the historic district.
So just for clarity, I just wanted the board to understand that it's all of these buildings, not just the one. And I'm sure they knew that, but it was the wrong address, but they understand now. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Greg.
So the far building that we're seeing here is also going to be gone.
Yes, all 3. There are 3 single-family homes between 65 and 75 North 7th, which will be demoed in order to create this new building.
So just so I'm clear, you're asking for the appropriateness of the design of the new building and how it is in concert with the rest of the town. That's what you're looking for from this group.
That's right. It's the certificate of appropriateness for that design and also for the demolition of this building.
And what's the history of the building that's being demolished that we're seeing that's in the historic district?
So let me pull up to what we have from our historic consultant here. The building, one of their findings in the field investigation is that there have been a lot of changes to this building, updates over the years, the replacement of the shingles with asphalt, the replacement of siding, structural work on the front porch and the front of the house. So while it was built, I think indicate 1884, it was updated in 1900 and again in 1960. So as a result, a lot of the architectural features have been changed. And here, I'll go back to the house so you can see it.
Considering that I'm new to the commission, I'm to my fellow commissioners here, like, what's been the process for this in the past for demolishing a building? I'm not familiar with how we've worked together on this.
Well, I mean, we generally don't look favorably on
Well, I assume that.
as a matter of principle. We haven't had to approve the demolition and reconstruction because for the most part, as I recall, that anything that had been demolished, Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, was deemed structurally unsound and code approved the demolition. We didn't have to.
John, that's absolutely correct.
Well,
At
I mean,
least in
you
my-
recently approved the demolition of the rear garage and the rebuilding a month or two ago. So, I mean, you do it from time to time.
Perhaps not what we would consider historically significant structures. Maybe that's.
Dan, could you scroll back up to the narrative of this building, please?
Yes.
Just to be clarified, while Dan's doing that, the code for demolition for historic is not just the building that's being demoed, but the plan that's being proposed to replace it, as per 169 of the city code.
Okay. So Craig, you're saying both elements are under consideration at the same time?
Yes, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but that's the criteria. It's if a building's deemed to be demolished, it's not so much what's being demolished, but it's also the factor where HPC weighs in on is what it's getting replaced with. They're actually, I think it says right in the code that you have to present a plan like what they're doing. I'll get the book and clarify it.
Thank you.
So if I may, in the alternatives analysis that we submitted to SHPO in connection with the demolition of this structure, what we looked at was the goals of this project, first and foremost, which is to create really urgently needed mixed income housing in the city of Hudson, and whether or not we could achieve those goals while also retaining that structure. And one of the reasons why, in our view, it's important to use this site for this purpose is that the site is located within the general commercial transitional zoning district in the city of Hudson, which is one of the few areas where it's possible to build a larger multifamily building to create this number of apartments. So that is why, we think it's important to use one of these kind of few opportunities to create a significant amount of housing, given the need that's been documented and the city plans that have been adopted calling for this type of development in these zoning districts. So that's kind of the logic behind this and why we chose this location. And these were some of the questions that we presented in this analysis to SHPO. So that's just a kind of preview as you dig deeper into this as to what we were considering and what SHPO was considering when they determined that it really wasn't feasible for us to keep the house, and that's why they gave us the letter approving this direction essentially.
Can we see the SHPO letter?
Absolutely.
Dan, I just want to chime in. You have an email with the 3D in it now.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Walter. And here. Here's the letter from SHPO.
It's interesting that they say in this, in the third paragraph, that in addition, design, I'm reading the last sentence of the third paragraph. Design features of the proposed new construction, along with the adjacent projects from the same developer, may reduce the overall impacts to the surrounding historic district. That just seems a bit of a stretch to me, but it's interesting to read this letter, and it's worth thinking about more. It's also a
Well,
little
this
confusing.
is another one. Oh, I was just going to say the board should schedule a public hearing on this one as well.
I would certainly agree with that.
I mean, I just don't see how we could have.
Yeah, I think we have to, based on our conversation in the previous.
So this is sort of easy.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to go back to the plan of the building again so that we can see how that fits into the streetscape?
Sure. And Walter sent me the drawings that we have showing how it fits in. So I can try to pull that up for you as well.
Thank you. Oh, that's very helpful. Could you just
Can you see that?
walk us through? Yes, that's very, very helpful. Could you walk us through these images?
Yes. So in the top left corner of this image, you see 75 North 7th. To the north of that, up North 7th Street, is the firehouse.
Okay.
North of the firehouse, down that hill, is Oakdale Lake.
Okay.
Across the street from 75 North 7th is our proposed 708 State project. Just south of 708 State is a concept for a future building. We don't have any proposals yet submitted for that, but that's a future concept.
I'm sorry, would you point that out with your cursor again? Where?
Yeah, so you see it's almost
Okay.
like a little Flatiron building.
Yes.
Yeah, so that we don't have any, we haven't submitted for site plan approval for that. But it's a conceptual drawing of a potential building for that site in the future. To the right of that, you see the historic Upper Hudson Depot building. North of that is another concept of a potential ancillary structure that would be just to the north of the depot building. So like our little Flatiron building, there's nothing proposed yet for that, but we just wanted to show our kind of future thoughts for the depot district.
So Dan, one quick comment. These are studies, and the one in the lower left-hand corner, I believe, was the winner of the study competition. So that one, yeah, that one at the lower flip gables and massing was set back in dormers. That became the print.
Thank you, Walter.
And I want to mention also that there's a possibility of rebuilding the orphanage. Did you mention that?
Yeah, so that's the last concept here is the bottom left building. We would, our plan in the future, which we haven't submitted yet for approvals, is to build a replica of the orphanage building that used to be on that site.
And then in your other drawings juxtaposing this elevation of this building with the pocketbook factory and the and for instance the community theater, this you begin to see much more the three-dimensional aspects of the impact of this building rather than that elevation drawing which puts those images near one another, but not really accurately in terms of distance and adjacency. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. That drawing, while it is to scale, it shows them as if they were all, neighboring each other, which they are certainly not.
The difficulty for me here is that normally we're considering a building and its demolition or renovation as an individual building fitting in with an existing neighborhood. In this case, what they're really doing is creating an entirely different neighborhood that never existed before. And I'm not sure what it is that we're being asked to evaluate from a historic perspective.
I mean, I think one of our goals is to get your input on our selection of materials, on the approach to the building, to make sure that as we create, which you're right, is really a new neighborhood, that it's consistent with the character of the rest of the city. I'm bringing this.
But it's not on its
back up
face.
to drive home Miranda's.
I mean, it's new. There's no place else in the city where there's this kind of density. And the density is what you're looking for because you want to create a lot of housing here. That's the intent of it. But it doesn't compare to any other part of the city, which is mostly single family or small apartment buildings.
If I can make one comment, Miranda, you're absolutely right. But 100 years ago, there were many more structures of this scale. They've all fallen down or been abandoned and burned.
That would be really, I mean, I agree with everyone else that this is a matter of such importance that we do have to have a public meeting about it. But I think it would be really helpful to include some historic photographs of that kind.
Also, I think that as the 3D sketches, sort of the bird's eye view sketches that we were talking about a few minutes ago, compared to this, in this view that we're looking at right now, we see this foreshortened view of the building on the left. It's much improved that there's at least a recess on the upper 4 floors of the center section that modulate this in some area. But if we look back at those sketches of the 3D sketches, I guess what would be the southerly facade of this, which is going back, and the northerly facade, we don't really see how that is in context with the community. They're quite massive, these elevations, and I'd asked previously to take a look. I think it's useful to look at a figure ground, if you will. That is a plan view of the city in this area that shows the total footprint of the proposed building compared to the footprints of the buildings that are around it. I think that this is a building of a massive scale, and it's very, very difficult to begin to modulate that. It's like a city block that's been built. It's not a series of buildings. It's a city block that has been built or that's being proposed. And then there are parts of it that are pushed in and out and changes of exterior finishes to kind of make it look like it was built over time, or that it is more contextual with the community. But this is a massive, massive project. And its overall bulk and mass is something I think the commission really needs to understand in context with the broader community.
I agree.
So just to clarify, Chip, what would be helpful there? Showing some comparisons to the footprint of other nearby properties?
Yes, if you were to do a plan, an urban plan of this area in a couple block directions in either directions, so that you could show what the footprint of the pocketbook factory really looks like in relationship to this, and the footprint of the community theater and so forth, so that one can really understand the scale of this footprint would be super helpful. The three-dimensional sketches that you showed earlier are also very, very helpful. It'd be even more helpful if they were expanded out to include more of the city, so that what we're looking here, I think what the commission needs to look at here is, what is really the context of this proposal? How does it fit into the context of the urban fabric of Hudson? And
Dan, you have an email.
Oh, thanks, Walter.
Phil, Jeremy was looking for clarity on demolition criteria, why Dan is reading his email. Do you want that now, or?
No, go ahead while you're on, Craig.
Well, there's two things that fall under 169.5 does require a certificate of appropriateness. And I think you're going to have to refer to Victoria on interpretation on this, but 169-8 for demolition hardship. Demolition shall be permitted only after the owner of the site has submitted the obtained design approval of his or her plans for the new development under the provisions of this chapter, including an acceptable timetable and guarantees, which may include performance bonds for demolition and completion of the project. In no case shall the time between demolition and commencement of new construction or lot improvement exceed 6 months. So that, that's why I was really surprised when this project for these properties were coming to the historic, because when I reviewed this, I didn't anticipate any of this coming up. So I would refer to Victoria for interpretation of that 169.8. But that's the criteria that the commission has always followed for, obviously smaller scale projects.
Okay. Dan, Craig, question. I assume this has been through planning?
Yes, this was approved, and they also issued a negative declaration for seeker.
Understand. And within SECRA, if I recall, there's a section on impact on the historic district.
Correct.
Well
The planning board.
Yes.
The planning board did consider, they did have to make findings that it wouldn't have a significant adverse impact on the, excuse me, on the historic district as part of their negative declaration.
Victoria, is it correct to say in the section on historic impact, there are several elements. One is the sort of standard aesthetics and competition with what exists. And is there not a section in there on potential economic impact on the historic district in terms of tourism and revenue and whatnot?
It's, you know, it's not that specific.
Okay.
If you're talking about seeker, the board has broad discretion to consider, you know, what will be an impact. And I'll have to go back. I don't have the negative declaration in front of me, but I can share it with everyone to see the planning board's findings. I believe they relied in large part on SHPO's findings of no significance.
We
But
included
yes,
a copy of the negative declaration in our application.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Victoria,
But in your evaluation, I mean, I think what you need to consider is the historic value of the building that's being demolished in and of itself. You know, is it significant, or is it, you know, will losing it result in such a great loss to the fabric of the National Register Historic District? And then two, is the new construction that's being proposed, is it going to have an impact on the National Register Historic District? And you know, those are the two things that you're looking at.
Okay.
And then, you know, even once you get past big picture impact, then are the materials appropriate? Is the massing appropriate, et cetera?
I can sort of understand the finding on the demo. I can't understand yet and need to study further how you would have a negative impact finding on the historic district. Whether the impact is whatever it may be. To say that there's no impact seems unusual.
Well, so the planning board didn't say no impact. They said that the impact would not rise to the level of being significant.
Okay.
Taken as a whole.
Victoria, we have, as a commission, the option of doing our own secret finding, don't we?
You do not. And so you had the option of participating in the planning board's findings and sending them comments. And they did circulate to you and send you a letter at one point. But since it was a coordinated review, you know, they made the decision for everyone. And so that you cannot alter the planning board's finding of no significance, but you still have all your authority to review the project under the criteria in the historic preservation law.
Got it. Thank you.
So it sounds like a public hearing is definitely in order for this. I think, are we all saying we're in agreement for that minimally?
I think clearly there's no question about that. I just want to understand what Dan and Walter are looking for from us today in terms of going forward.
Well, I mean, what I heard from the board was the board wants some more information on how the demolition and how this project is going to impact the larger district. And Chip asked for some, you know, different renderings or perspectives. And so they should be prepared to address that at the next meeting.
That's good.
Yes, so any other requests? I mean, if we could perhaps review just to make sure that we're getting everything. I know there was a request for some historic photos of larger scale buildings that have existed in the city of Hudson. A request to see the comparison of the footprint of the proposed building with the footprints of other historic buildings in the surrounding neighborhood. I just put an image showing a little sample of that, which I'll make sure to circulate as an amendment to our application. I believe there was also a request to see the building further contextualized from the southern elevation to see how the southern elevation compares to some of the neighboring properties. Were there any other requests?
Yes, I think the three-dimensional aspect of this is really important to understand in the streetscape. And if you could just go back to that previous image that you had, which was a kind of a figure ground of the immediate area.
This one?
Well, actually, this is actually quite good. Is this 3D based on anything that is that can be translated into a video or a movement, or are these just still 3D?
No, I'm sure we could make it would be at this level of sophistication if that's okay, but we could certainly move you through the project, sure.
Yeah, thank you, Walter. This is a SketchUp model.
Yeah, so we have that capability.
I think that would be, I think it would be really, really helpful to the commission for you to take this information that you have, and as you say, that the level of information that you have here, I think in terms of massing is adequate. It would be really helpful to be able to create a video from this information. If you could get the Pocketbook Factory in, I don't know if this 3D extends over to the over to the theater for purposes of scale. But the more information that you could put around these buildings to show as you have tried to make your case with the flat elevations of the Pocketbook Factory and the other buildings, I think it's really useful to see them in this 3D. Dan, you had previously a more of a urban plan, straight plan, not a 3D sketch such as this, that was, maybe it's taken from this. Walter, you might be able to speak to that.
And it's the one you had up that I just sent you.
Okay, yeah, I'll pull that back up. I just need to stop share for a second. This one's a JPEG. This one?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Walter, is this part of the SketchUp?
It is. That's the SketchUp model, and you can see the theater and the Pocketbook Factory and the Register Star building. Everything's there.
Yeah, that's really super helpful. If this kind of plan view could be used to rotate and come down and you can begin to see the three-dimensional aspect of things, it would be very useful. One of the things in this particular still image that we're looking at here is, for me, there's a kind of confusion about what shadow lines are doing. The dark green appear to be shadows of some existing buildings and some proposed buildings. And then there's some other shadow that's just a gray shadow, like, for instance, the building that's across the street. So I think these shadows can be very, very helpful in everyone understanding the three-dimensional aspect of things. So if you could incorporate that shadow work in there in your 3D movie of this, it would be very, very helpful.
Absolutely. That's easy. Thank you.
Yep, good.
And we'll have that for the public hearing.
I think it'd be very helpful for the public to be able to see this in this kind of 3D. You've got the data, it's already entered. It's just a matter of creating the film.
Agree.
Yeah, great.
One other thing that may be helpful for the next meeting is to have the rationale or the thinking behind some of the choices of the architecture, some of the cladding and the that refined piano nobile at the bottom. Like, there's some elements here that I'm just not accustomed to seeing in Hudson. I'd love to hear your thought process behind that.
Okay.
Hi, Phil, you're muted.
Just assume what I said while I was muted was brilliant, and then we'll follow on. No, have you discussed the architectural theory of the case with the commission so far, or not yet?
So I think Walter will be able to provide further detail on the design references
Okay.
at the, I guess, at the public hearing.
Or now, if
However
you'd
you want to
like.
proceed.
Or
and
now,
whatever
yeah,
you feel
Walter, if
ready.
you're good.
Yeah,
talk
no,
for-
I can do a little talking now if you'd like. It's up to you guys.
I think that would be useful.
helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I suppose you can imagine that the building in the center is the building that we're talking about. And I'm not sure what happened to the shadows, Chip. Those green shadows are all supposed to be gray. We'll fix that in the next drawing. I just grabbed what I could find quickly. But the general notion is pretty obvious. There was an idea of doing a large building. It was put out in front of the public. The reaction was quite negative. It looked very monolithic. And so we've been spending a lot of time studying the different shapes of the buildings in Hudson in the area. And I don't know how to say this so it doesn't sound stupid, but rather than making a box, we tried to make some assemblages of pieces. And so you do get this composition that looks more like it either grew over time or it's made up of several different buildings. Whether we've done that successfully or not, you guys can be the judges of, but that was what the attempt was. And it seems to be a strategy in my mind that will help us kind of mediate between, what is a new type of building to Hudson and a large older type, which is the factory. So, there were like huge monolithic buildings like the Pocketbook Factory in the area. I don't know exactly if there was one right next to it, but I know there was a foundry where the parking lot is for the newspaper now. So there was a lot of stuff going on there. And, we're basically trying to compose it from elements. So I don't know what to say, except scale is a question that Chip raised. And the two strategies that make the most sense to me are to, one, break the volume of the building itself down as much as possible. And two, and this is really important because Galvin is planning to do this, build what I call a screen of smaller or mid-sized buildings around it. So the intention to build the orphanage back and build that little triangular building and add an initial building behind the depot, which would have been the freight depot originally. That's all intended to create a context, if not an actual physical historic context, a scale context. So, and hopefully that's in some of those 3D images that will be more apparent. So that's my spiel.
Thank you, Walter. A really large building that could be a model somewhat for this is and I think the Pocketbook Factory, you're bringing that into scale as a discussion of scale is really important. The building that's at the corner of 7th and Warren Street, that is where the terrific restaurant, carryout restaurant is on the ground floor. That is a monster, kind of a monster of a building. And maybe speaks a little bit to those sort of transitional large buildings that make this transition from the small residential to the larger factory. I think that this particular drawing that we're looking at right now is does not illustrate your concept as well as a three-dimensional presentation would, because this looks very flat because it's just an elevation drawing, but you have pushed back the middle section of the second, third, and fourth and fifth floors. You've lowered down the mansard roof of the faceted roof that bridges between these two gable ends. And that will also lower the roof line in that center section. And so I think there are lots of good attempts here to modulate that elevation and to modulate and to achieve the goal that you're describing, which is how do we break this large element down into a scaled elements that have an appearance of not having been built all at once. And as you know, Walter, and as we all know, we've seen a lot of this work done very, very unsuccessfully, right? Where buildings are just basically big boxes and they get wallpapered to look like they've been, they have different materials on them. They throw on some stone, they throw on some stucco, they throw on some brick, they change the windows around a little bit, but the bottom line is it's basically a big box that just got wallpapered. And you've gone beyond that here, but I don't know that you've gone beyond it enough, because I think your presentation is not as good as where you're going with this. And I think it would be super helpful to see the scale of the side elevations of this and the rear elevations of this, so that it could be understood the plasticity that you're trying to develop in these three elements that we're looking at in this elevation. I think can be refined. They can be increased in their plasticity, and I think they can be presented in a way that better describes them. I do like, for instance, the plasticity that you've developed in the building that's across the street, particularly with the diagonal cut of the from the corner through to the railroad track. We see this in the plan view that you've done. I don't know if you, Dan, have easy access to that. But
Yeah, would you like to see the site plan?
yeah, well, that's it right there.
Yeah.
Terrific, thank you. So if you could use your cursor to show the commission, back up a little bit more out some if you could. There we go. That's okay, that's good right there. Where you have your cursor to show the U-shaped building of the proposed building, which, by the way, in this floor plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, Walter, does not necessarily show the recess of the middle section on the street side.
It doesn't, it shows it in light line because at ground level, it's a continuous storefront.
Right, right.
So-
So again, it doesn't show it very well, but I want the commission to understand that the overall footprint of this building is a big U shape that has a courtyard in the back. It's more open in the back. It has a very, very long section along what would be the east elevation facing the fire station, right? More or less northeast,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that understanding that relative to the fire station massing is important. To your point, Walter, the concept of having a central larger mass that steps down with other buildings is all part of this urban design. And the fire station, as unfortunate as that building may be, it's an element to work with in this overall urban composition that you're putting together. What I was mentioning before about the building across the street, and if you could show that, Dan, with your cursor, it's a somewhat of a U-shaped building, but it's truncated by the diagonal line coming from the corner. From corner to corner. That diagonal line is, to my mind, really, really interesting in creating the dynamics of the fragmentation of the urban plan of the city, where we see lots of different buildings of different sizes juxtaposed to one another. And so we end up getting a more truncated footprint, if you will, in the building that's across the street, because the rear facade of that has been sliced off by that diagonal pathway that you've created there. Anyway, those are my comments to your comments, Walter, about the concept of making this, achieving those goals that I think you just outlined. I think those goals are really right on. That's really, I think, the appropriate approach. It's a matter of executing that, refining it, and and explaining it to the folks and showing it showing the dynamic, the potential dynamic of these buildings.
Okay.
Thank you, Chip. That's very helpful.
Sure. I also really like the concept of the future Flatiron building. That's all good.
I just want to mention that diagonal was a rail line, more or less. That was a freight yard over on that side. So we're trying to keep a little of that vibe there.
Okay.
Chip, I don't know if you sense that this is just something I see. If you can just jump back to the rendering that shows it in kind of in perspective, like you're walking down the street.
Yes.
That would be great. Perfect. So one of the things I'm struggling a little bit is kind of the suburban feel of this. And I don't know if it's the treatment of that bottom floor as being separate, but I don't know if anyone else from the commission is feeling that. That's just one piece that I'm struggling with. It's the masonry along the bottom, articulating the retail spaces, that feels very suburban to me. It doesn't feel very Hudson.
You know what it does? It's interesting that you pointed that out, Jeremy, because I was focused more on the top parts, but because of the choice of materials, you know, you're trying to use natural materials, stone and brick, which is consistent with the architecture of the larger buildings in Hudson. But this, the facades of the storefronts make the buildings above them look fake in some strange
Yes,
way.
that's,
You know what I'm saying?
that's exactly the feeling I was getting. So I know
That
what you
they
mean.
look like now they're a kind of, you know, Disney-fied copy of a
Mhm.
building. And I don't think that's what you want. And maybe it's just the rendering. Maybe it's how it
It
looks
could be.
here. But
So
I think
just
what
to-
you want to do is have some consistency between the top part of the building and the lower part.
Or would you take like painted woodwork instead of this, which they
Maybe.
do a lot?
That could work as well.
Yeah.
There
That's
is
a
an
very good point.
Epcot aspect of it that it's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think Jeremy, your use of the term suburban in describing this is a good word to use to describe this, because we see this type of use, this architectural treatment in many suburban situations where they're trying to create a main street. One of the things, Walter, that I think contributes to that suburbanizing appearance is that there's the use of the commercial first floor. Your treatment of that has made it a horizontal line from corner to corner. And one of the things that's characteristic of Hudson is that our buildings are largely vertical. They're rarely horizontal. When we walk up and down Warren Street, for instance, Warren Street is a composition of vertical elements on a diagonal horizontal block. And this horizontality that you see with a uniformity of, more or less uniformity of cornice line on the first floor for both the left-hand side and the right-hand side, I think that is contrary to the image of Hudson, which is composed of more vertical elements.
So I'm just gonna jump in and point out that this is, going to be a subsidized housing project. And so a lot of the things that you're saying are really excellent suggestions, but we're going to have to look at, can these be done practically? In other words, the windows, basically all the windows are the same, right, above, but they've been varied and the patterns changed and everything. So presumably we could do that with the storefront. I'm just getting to the point that we can't really change the floor to floors. So I'm going to try and do what you suggest simply, but I think it would be a question of adding, like, say, taking the retail store facade on the first one up another floor maybe, or, starting to pull some of these things up. Would that be acceptable? Would that do it for you?
Yeah, yes, I think that, again, creating the plastic, creating the forms that you've already started to develop and advancing them to refine them. Yeah, I understand that the floor plate needs to be continuous from side to side. Unfortunately, we're in a situation here where this road bed is essentially flat, right? It doesn't have a lot of crown to it, doesn't have a lot of
True.
vertical movement in it.
Yes.
And that's a given. So you would naturally see an alignment of elements there, of floor levels there, and understanding that in this singular construction, you need to have a continuous floor plate on all of your floors. But windows can be varied. They don't have to all be the same. Storefronts their finishes can creep up into the second floor. They don't have to be horizontally.
Absolutely.
And you started to develop a kind of sculptural aspect with the arch opening, the arch that's over the central entrance there, and some architectural features above it with, I'm not quite sure what the detail of that is at this point, but you've started to put that together. I think it's a matter of expanding that and creating more variety. Well, in fact, this is a good example, because here you see the storefront going up and completely capturing the second floor window. That kind of modulation is, I think, important to you accomplishing what you're setting out to accomplish.
You're making sense to me. I do think if we pull that retail facade up on the left, 2 stories, that would do a huge amount, and then I'll just break up the middle.
Yeah, and again, it's not a matter of consistency, it's a matter of balance, inconsistency. That's what Warren Street is. It's this incredible balance of inconsistency. And that's why it's so charming. And in part, the reason that this looks suburban is because you're up against the curve of building something big all at once. It's a hard thing to do. It's not easy to do it convincingly.
Good advice.
Another possibility might be, and of course this gets probably somewhat compromised by your budget concept, but in the previous image, there are, if you could go back to that perspective, where we have in Hudson, where we have buildings that are set back from other buildings, we frequently have windows on the sides of the buildings that protrude. So we look at the white brick facade that we're seeing here of that element. If those were windows, as you have shown on the other side, and we begin to get that sort of variation, it increases the how convincing these modulations can be.
Okay.
Great.
Good. Next steps.
So I think we've got a good list of homework here. Any other requests, any other materials we can pull together?
Dan, if you don't mind, and Walter too, I think this is a lot to absorb. It may be that I might have a question, or someone else might have a question between now and the the next meeting. I know we're limited by the rules in terms of obviously discourse or gathering or whatever. But if you'd be available, if I sent an email at some point, if anything else occurred to one of us, and just shared that with you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, we welcome any individual communications, any additional advice on how to improve this. It'll be much appreciated.
Okay. Commissioners, we have one public hearing, which we agreed to in 2 weeks. I suppose we can do two, but I don't know how brilliant that is to do in the same meeting. This is an extraordinarily important piece of work that involves a big potential change in our streetscape. Would it make sense to defer the public hearing and not to the next meeting, but to the one afterwards? Just thinking out loud, I'd like your thoughts.
That's sound.
Okay. All right, if you guys don't mind, you should have some separate space for this. We need time to noodle. So we will have the public hearing on I believe it was Rossman in 2 weeks and this meeting 2 weeks afterwards. In the meantime, we will almost certainly stay in touch. I'm also concerned about time because I know that I've gotten texts from both Rebecca and Craig who need to go on to other meetings.
As do I.
Yeah. I
Okay.
do.
Okay,
Phil, can I just give you one quick update? It'll take 1 second. So
of course.
We actually met and talked about the certified local government criteria program.
Oh,
And it's-
terrific, Michael.
Yeah. So I think we should follow up offline with you separately. We have the criteria that we worked out. And we just want to talk about what some of the implications really are, and are we really ready for these next steps?
How are you?
I'm yours. Phone,
Okay.
mail, or if you prefer to buy me a coffee anywhere on Warren Street, I'm into that too.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I'll reach out separately.
All right.
And yeah,
Thank you very much.
Jeremy and Phil, and we also want maybe the commission to consider having SHPO come back and present certified local government to us once again. It's been a while and the commissioners have changed, so we might want to put that on the roster.
I think a great idea. And I have some files going back in previous conversations. So if you guys bring me up to date, I can bring you up back to the past on what's been discussed in previous discussions with SHPO. So let's do that.
I'll look for a time for you, me and Paul to connect, and we can share what we've found out.
Perfect.
That's terrific. I had included some other folks on the agenda and I'll just be real quick just because it is on the agenda. I think it was same owner, two
Hi, Phil.
buildings. They were having trouble logging in and we'll fix that.
Hi, Phil. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to see if you all wanted to set that public hearing and vote on it.
We should go ahead then. I just don't have a calendar handy. We've agreed in 2 weeks, we're going to do the public hearing on Rossman. So it would be, I guess, the first meeting in, what would that be? The first meeting in March? Whatever that date is, motion to
March
agree.
11th.
Public. Okay. What's the date again?
It is March 11th, it looks like.
Perfect. Commissioners, motion to approve a public hearing on Depot District for March 11th. I'll make that.
Make that motion.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
In favor?
Aye.
Done.
Aye.
Done. That's gonna happen. Terrific. Motion to adjourn.
I make that motion.
Thank you.
Can I
Miranda, second.
quickly, before you close,
Pardon?
do you mind? This is James with Arterial. I just wanted to, we were on the last meeting and we got pushed to this meeting. So I'm guessing obviously we didn't make it on the agenda, which I'm not sure. But if we could get on the next agenda for the streetscape improvement project.
You will, James. I apologize. That's a screw up. That's not a good thing. You will be in the next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. We're done.
You.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.